My friend's mother-in-law visits her every year. She stays with them for a few months. And during this time, she goes around the apartment society frequently, makes new friends, has chai with everyone. And then, every single year, without fail, comes back and says to my friend,
Wouldn't it be so nice if you guys also bought a flat? Everyone else has one.
I visited that auntie today. Her son has a 3 BHK. And that lady in the other tower that I told you about yesterday, her son has a penthouse. But last visit, something shifted for my friend. The mother-in-law went for an event at someone else's apartment. My friend stayed back home. And when her mother-in-law came back, my friend overheard her say to her husband, very casually, "Oh, everyone else seems to have everything in place. But it is just us that nothing seems to have gone right for." Now, my friend told me that something broke in her that day. Because that one overheard sentence did what years of direct comments hadn't managed. It made her feel, in her bones, that she and her husband simply weren't enough. And here's what that sentence had so casually ignored. My friend and her husband live in a metro. Both of them work. They have salaries that haven't kept pace with insane property prices, difficult bosses, and the very real threat of layoffs happening across industries right now. Buying a flat in a metro today, even on 2 incomes, means an EMI that could bury you if one job disappears. The mother-in-law will not pay that EMI. The reorganization email in office, the we're restructuring meeting, the terror of unpaid loans, none of that will be hers. But the status? Casually dropping at the next get-together that her son owns an apartment? That she will absolutely collect. And if you think this is one woman, one family, you're wrong. Change the city, the names, whether it's a flat or a wedding or a job, and this exact scene is playing out across middle-class India right now. Openly or in that very particular Indian way. Indirect, plausibly deniable, wrapped in concern. शर्मा जी के बेटे के इतने अच्छे मार्क्स हैं, तुम्हारे क्यों नहीं आए? उसका तो IIT में सिलेक्शन हो गया, तुम्हारा रीजनल कॉलेज में भी नहीं हो रहा है। उसकी शादी हो गई, तुम्हारी क्यों नहीं हो रही? उसने 2 फ्लैट खरीद लिए मुंबई में, तुम क्या कर रहे हो? Sharma ji, by the way, is just a metaphor. He could be your neighbor, your parents' sibling, a random person they met at a wedding 2 years ago and have been benchmarking you against ever since. So, in this video, let us examine why this keeps happening to young Indian adults and what it is actually doing to them. Think about it. In India, your business has never been just your business. Your neighbor knows your salary. Your relatives have opinions about your family dynamics. Your mother is being asked at her kitty party why you're still not married. Your father is constantly fielding questions in his colony about why you don't have a government job yet. That's not just nosiness. That's how this society is structurally built. Joint families, mohalla gatherings, the entire concept of izzat, honor, being something the whole family carries together, not just one person. And for a long time, that was a strength. Community showed up for you. You were never completely alone. But when everyone is in your life, everyone is also keeping score. Your family's reputation is shared property. And in that world, comparison isn't just a bad habit. It becomes the currency everyone starts trading in. This gets even more complicated when parents are from smaller towns. In Indore or Jaipur or Lucknow, money goes further. A flat is more achievable, and the cost of living doesn't quietly eat into your salary before the month is half done. So when their neighbor's son, who also moved to Mumbai, buys a flat, that becomes the benchmark. What they don't see is the punishing commute, the EMI eating half his salary, the sacrifices invisible from back home. All that's visible to them is the flat. And that flat becomes the standard your life gets measured against. The mother-in-law walking around that apartment society isn't just making random conversation. She is, whether she knows it or not, doing what this social ecosystem trained her to do her entire life. Scan, compare, calculate where the family stands, and then bring that anxiety home, straight to her children. The generation that is now in their 60s and 70s didn't grow up in the India you and I know. They grew up in a country that was genuinely structurally poor, where government jobs were precious because they were secure, where a house wasn't about lifestyle. It was the difference between having ground under your feet and having nothing. In that world, watching what your neighbor had wasn't pettiness. It was information you needed. But then India changed. The economy opened up. Private jobs, new industries, new ways of building a life that their parents couldn't have imagined. The world shifted dramatically. The instinct, though, that remained the same. That deep-wired anxiety. Check what others have. Check if we're falling behind. That stayed. And now it gets aimed at situations it has absolutely no business being applied to. What was once a survival reflex became a default setting. And default settings, as we know, don't turn off on their own. Let's get into another reason why this happens. And this one we have to be honest about. Some of it is just ego. And here's where we stop being too kind about it. Because not everything is explained by scarcity or collective culture or historical context. Some of it is quite simply, these parents want to feel good about themselves in front of other people. They want to be the one at the family function who can say, "My son bought an apartment in Powai, while someone else's son is still renting in Thane." It is competitive, it is ego-driven, and it is at your expense. The EMI stress is yours. The sleepless nights are yours. The anxiety about job security on top of a massive home loan, entirely yours. But the social status generated by your purchase, that gets distributed freely to everyone who had absolutely nothing to do with earning it. This is not a neutral thing. It is a parent using a child's life as a prop in their own social performance. And we should be able to name that clearly, without dressing it up into something easier to swallow. Now let's talk about the actual measurable cost of all of this. Mental health in India is already under-discussed and under-treated. And one of the most consistent themes therapists in Indian cities will tell you is this. The pressure of parental comparison, of never feeling like enough, of constantly being measured against someone else's life, is one of the biggest contributors to anxiety and depression in young Indian adults today. It is the slow, grinding erosion of your sense of self that happens when the people who are supposed to be in your corner are instead quietly keeping score. And then there's the financial damage, very real and very concrete. A significant number of young Indians in metros are buying homes they cannot comfortably afford. Not because they ran the numbers and decided this was the right move, but because the pressure from parents, from extended family, from the cultural narrative that renting is shameful and owning is the only sign you've arrived, became unbearable. They take on EMIs that eat 50 to 60, sometimes 70% of their take-home salary. They stop saving. They stop investing. No buffer for a medical emergency, a job loss, or a bad year. One layoff away from genuine crisis. And layoffs, as anyone paying attention knows, are very much the flavor of the season right now. And the parents who pushed for the house, they're not co-signers on that loan. They're not losing sleep over the EMI. They got what they wanted. And the actual weight of that decision lives entirely with the child. If it were genuinely about wanting good things for their children, The goalposts would occasionally stay in one place. You'd buy the flat and that would be enough. But it never is. And this is what turns so many young Indians in the corporate workforce into hamsters on a wheel. Always running, never arriving. You buy the flat, then it's about the size, then the location, then the car, then the child, then the school the child gets into. The comparison machine doesn't ever turn off when you satisfy it. It recalibrates and finds a new gap to point at. Because it was never really about the flat in the first place. It was about their anxiety, their need for social validation. And here's something nobody says out loud. Many Indian parents have built no independent identity outside of the family. And so, in old age, all that's left is the children, their achievements, their possessions, their status. The parents' own sense of self-worth gets transferred entirely onto what their child is or isn't doing. Which means your stalled house purchase isn't just your problem. It has become the thing standing between them and feeling good about themselves. So what do we do with all of this? You don't have to perform someone else's idea of a successful life. You especially don't have to go into debt performing it. The generation that built India's middle class did remarkable things. But they also passed down patterns that need to stop with us. The comparison, the outsourced anxiety, the idea that your worth is a function of what's visible from the outside. Your financial decisions should be made on your own terms, your income, your stability, your actual goals, and not on the timeline of someone else's social calendar. Because at the end of all this, Sharma ji doesn't care. Sharma ji never did. And what your parents don't know is that Sharma ji is very likely dealing with his own version of exactly this. The only person living with your decisions is you. If this resonated with you or reminded you of someone going through this, please share this video and let me know your thoughts in the comments.